Another component of the control environment is control activities. So we are going to look at the control activities. We shall start by defining what control activities are. So control activities, these take a form of information processing controls and general IT controls, which may be both manual and automated in nature. So this looks at the controls or the policies and procedures that are put in place to support the processing of information. Yeah, processing of information, which can be manual or automated, like using the IT system. That's what we are going to look at. So we are going to look at the examples of the control activities. So the control activities that we are going to look at are listed here. First, we have the access controls, then we have segregation of duties, we have authorization controls, approval authority, account reconciliations, physical checks or controls, documentation, performance reviews, and then IT processing controls. So those are the controls, the control activities that we are going to be looking at. We are going to look at each one of them in details. So down there is a formula that you can use like to easily remember these control activities. It is PADAX, whereby you have two P's, then three A's, then one D, then two C's, and then S, whereby the first P is for physical checks, then the next P is for performance reviews, then A is for account reconciliations, the first A. Then another A is for authorization, another one is for approval, then D is for documentation, then C is for IT processing controls, then S is for segregation. So you can use that formula to easily remember those access controls because they're examinable. So let's start with the first one, which is access controls. So access controls implies that access to different parts and information within the accounting system is protected. Like it's not like anyone or everyone can access that information. So there is a particular process that someone is supposed to go through in order for them to access information. So this can be done by use of strong passwords and any other security measures to minimize unauthorized access to accounting information systems. So that is all about access controls, to make sure that information is protected. Not anyone can access the information at any time. So the second one is segregation of duties. So this involves assigning different people responsibilities of authorizing transactions, then recording transactions, and then maintaining custody of assets. So segregation of duties, like you make sure that different people are doing different tasks. Like you do not make the same person that records transactions to be the one to keep custody of the assets, because they can easily use that as an advantage to misappropriate things. So segregation of duties is intended to reduce opportunities to allow any person to be in position to both perpetuate and conceal errors or fraud. An example of segregation of duties, like a manager authorizing credit sales, is different from the manager that is responsible for maintaining accounts receivables or handling cash receipts. Because if one person is able to perform all these activities, they can use it to their advantage. They can even forge like a credit sale that didn't actually occur, something like that. So you have to segregate duties to avoid fraud. Another control activity is authorization controls, and these controls define who has the authority to approve various transactions. For example, who has the authority to approve credit sales, who has the authority to approve the purchase of particular fixed assets and all that. That is authorization. So an authorization affirms that a transaction is valid. Yeah, it shows that something has been approved and it is actual. So it represents an actual economic event, or it it shows that something is within the policy, or it has been accepted to take place, that this and that has accepted that this person should be given sales on credit. Yeah, this person has approved that we should purchase a particular asset. That's what we call authorization. So, authorization takes a form of an approval by a higher level of management or verification, and a determination if the transaction is valid. For example, a supervisor approves an expense report after reviewing whether the expenses seem reasonable and are within the policy. Yeah. Authorization, for example, it can be authorization of purchase of non-current assets by the board of directors. So it's like seeking approval from someone higher, yeah, or from higher management or those charged with governance. Another control activity is approval authority. So this makes sure that transactions within the accounting system are authenticated. Authentic is something that is real or original. So it makes sure that the transactions within the accounting system are original. That is approval. Another control activity we have is account reconciliations. So this looks at preparing and reviewing timely reconciliations and making necessary corrections. Reconciliations compare like two or more data elements. If differences are identified, then action is taken. It's like comparing the cash book and then the bank statement to see if they're really matching. If there is any difference between the two, then mistakes are corrected. That is account reconciliations. So reconciliations address the completeness or accuracy of processing of transactions, because if you reconcile, you can be able to see if something is complete or incomplete. Then you'll be able to see if something is accurate or inaccurate. So an example of reconciliation is the monthly reconciliation of receivables. You can compare the receivables and the receivables ledger control account by a person independent of the receivables and then the general ledger to see if they are really matching. If there is any difference, then that difference is investigated. Another control activity is physical checks or controls. So these are controls that restrict access to premises, assets, accounting records, computer files, to reduce the risk of theft or loss. They restrict who can access the premises of the entity. For example, if you're entering an organization or premises of an entity, they first check you, then they make you register somewhere, things like that. Then this can be achieved by using things like safes and then security door locks. Like if someone wants to access particular accounting records, they're supposed to find them in a particular safe, and that safe is locked. They're supposed to be knowing the password and all that. Another control activity we have is documentation. So this makes sure that accounting transactions are systematically documented using the standardized documents and formats to maintain consistency. So standardized documents include things like invoices, payment vouchers, and claim forms. So for documentation, it makes sure that the documents in the organization are kept or documented in the way that they're supposed to be documented. Another control activity we have is performance reviews. Performance reviews, like reviewing something, it's like going through it again. So this involves comparison of actual performance against budgets, like what was budgeted and what actually took place. Yeah. Then comparing like the current period with the previous period performance to see whether there is either an improvement or a decline. Then comparing maybe internal data and then external data. That is performance review. So performance reviews involves analyzing operating results, comparing actual results to the budgeted ones, and investigating the variances. If there was an increase in expenditure, you find out why. If there was a decrease in expenditure, you find out why. Things like that. Another control activity is IT processing controls. So these are controls that are programmed into IT applications such as sales or purchases. So they check the arithmetical accuracy of records. They check to see whether the figures that were written are correct. Yeah, an example can be the numerical sequence checks of documents. So those were the control activities. We had the access controls, the physical checks, performance reviews, authorization, approval, segregation, IT processing controls, documentation. Yeah. So thanks for watching. Do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends. Let's catch up in my next video.